Thank you. Sorry. I again hereby start the zoning administrator meeting of September 25th. We have little technical difficulties, so we're starting at around 11 minutes after 10. We have one hearing before us this morning, and I'm going to ask Jose to present an overview of the project.
Yes, good morning, everybody. For the record, Jose Herrera, planner, community economic development. Item number one is development application PLAN 24109 ED 24026. The property address is 3 Welch Street. The project is a residential addition and interior alterations to an existing 2-story single-family residence. In a little bit more detail, the proposed project will remodel and construct approximately 723 square foot rear addition to the existing residence. The addition will take place in 3 parts: basement conversion, main floor area addition, and upper story addition. Overall, the project will preserve the existing street fronting facade, incorporate overall elements to the existing building that are consistent with the period of architecture and window patterns. Therefore, the project requires a zoning administrator level design review, of which this meeting will satisfy the code requirements. Thank you.
So this is a quasi judicial but pretty informal type of meeting. Does anybody have any questions? I hereby open the public comment period. Does anybody have any questions regarding the project? Do we want to look at the plans? Absolutely.
I wanted to look at the plan.
Okay.
And my first question is this really an addition to the existing structure? Or is it a separate structure? And I couldn't tell that from the notification.
Great question. I'm gonna ask the architect to describe the project in detail.
Do I get to keep this, by the way?
Yeah, please, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you a neighbor?
Yes, my house, fence line, the east fence line, runs against their back fence at 3 Welsh.
Oh, okay.
So, actually, my backyard is butted up against their backyard.
So you're a number 1 in this?
One Jones place.
Jones, okay, got it.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah, so my main purpose in coming to this meeting is not necessarily to object, but just to see the plans to understand what is intended and also understand the timeline, what's expected in terms of the construction. Should I choose to sell my home or not? I would like to know all of these different specifics. So
Why
this
don't we
is
start-
really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I get to keep this.
Can you just-
Fantastic.
So the first question I heard was, is this a separate addition or is it attached to the main structure?
Right.
It's definitely attached. And I could just kind of give a general, story of how we arrived at the design.
Right?
So Sean and his family have been there for
2010.
so almost 14 years. Young kids, the house is a lovely original sort of salt box front facade. And you know, I'm out there looking at the pictures of the neighborhood. I
Right.
could almost pick it out. I think it's there. Similar to the neighboring house at 5. There was a subsequent series of additions, I think, that went out the back that are real hodgepodgey, just sort of, hey, let's, you know, convert a back porch into this and then add that second story. Anyway, very marginal construction and or look and feel and usability. And so their floor plan is very cut up and doesn't accomplish what they want to do, upstairs and down. So we decided, we're thinking about remodel and how we could do that. The best solution turned out to be basically removing the poorly built work that was done over the years, and replacing it with a more cohesive design. Fortunately, the front look of the house is retained entirely. There's almost no impact at all to the front view. And the windows and trim details we've reflected in the addition to be in keeping with the original design of the home. So the sides and back. Then the downstairs, there is a basement conversion, which may someday be an ADU. We've been perfectly open about that as a possibility, but at this time, it's not something that they need or want or can
The
afford.
downstairs conversion, you mean like
The basement, yeah.
like the street level? Oh, got
Yeah,
it, got
underneath,
it,
it's
got
actually
it, got it,
split
got it,
level,
right.
so that subgrade. The current house is probably 5 feet above current grade, which is
Yeah,
common.
I was in the house years and years ago where they moved in, of course.
Yes.
And I didn't remember visiting the basement, but maybe that was.
Well, it's a
part
good
of-
thing.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yes.
Apparently,
So, yeah,
it's basement,
yeah,
very
got it.
damp. There's going to be some significant upgrades for foundation retrofit, ventilation, just
Right.
all kinds of health reasons. It needs to be cleaned up under.
These are old houses.
Yeah, settings, yeah.
Understand.
So the current house is pretty well, it's pretty tight. The main original construction, you know, really good redwood, just great design, high ceilings. So we're reflecting that, we're carrying that back into a kitchen area, which we're basically rebuilding the kitchen and dining room on the main level. And then the upstairs, relocating the stairs, and then there's going to be an additional primary bedroom and bath at the rear, which is what you will see on the upper story. The good news is from an impact on neighbors, there's a well-established, very mature redwood tree, which is an evergreen, which is essentially between the two properties. So I think you'll have good.
Very familiar.
Yeah,
with
there's good tree. So I think it will need to have a few limbs trimmed on the house side of the addition because they stick out, and so vegetation management will need to remove those, but redwoods are perfect for that. You know, you can clip a couple and go, yeah, solve the problem. But I still believe there's going to be continued screening on the other side of the tree. So I do not believe it'll have any substantive increase in privacy issue between the homes. And the location of where the addition is not substantively closer to yours. It's a couple of few feet further back. The rebuild of what was there. So the new construction, what was there versus what's going to be there. And the upper story is definitely larger, but the lower story is the same.
What's that for?
Well, because we're tearing down what was there and rebuilding it essentially, and it's just a slightly larger form.
Okay. Maybe the plans will help me to
If
understand.
you want to come by.
Yeah, I might do that. So just in terms of the setback, the distance to the fence, what are we looking at now? I mean, I'm assuming that it's coming out.
Well, you're probably most interested in what is moving to the rear or
Right.
towards your home.
Right.
And currently, let's use your little pens here. Print of these. So these are just some of the materials, it's just an example. But the rear photograph this is probably the most accurate. So
I
you're seeing
see.
the upper story addition, the lower level, and kind of the redwood through the canopy. This is all going to be torn down and rebuilt. And sort of come towards you. So this portion here is all going to be torn down and rebuilt.
Right,
There's currently a back deck there.
right.
And
So
we're going to remove that.
it's where the kitchen and the new kitchen is gonna be.
Well, essentially, it's almost at the same wall. are there. The deck is going to be removed and a smaller deck and stairs is going to be coming straight down. The approach might be more patio based versus rear deck. That's TBD. Someday they might think about another deck, but
Right,
at
right.
this time, it's mostly just transition to the backyard and enjoy the backyard as it is.
Huh,
So it's not that much closer. The upper story is
Doesn't appear
definitely
to be.
closer.
Yeah.
So I can show you
Okay.
the site.
Yeah, that's great.
So in site plan, you can see the hatching and you'll see where it's, rebuilt.
Mhm.
And then where's their addition? And the addition is this, on the lower level is just this additional foot.
Right.
That lower level.
Right.
But the upper story was here and now it's here. So
Okay.
it's a bigger upper story.
Okay.
But again, you're here and there's a large tree there. So I
It doesn't seem to be hardly any impact at all.
very limited, very limited.
Good. Well, I am very relieved.
And I think it'll be a lot nicer. And if you're talking about selling your house, it's certainly going to improve the neighborhood because it'll be a nicer house.
Well,
Hopefully you're not thinking about selling.
I'm sure it's a nice house right now. So, I mean, I'm not that concerned. When you get a little card like that in the mail, you don't really know what does that mean? And there is a second structure on the property right now. So I wasn't sure if it incorporated the second structure or if there was gonna be a third structure. So that's really, my primary interest. Then my other question has to do with timing. And what we're looking at in terms of construction, start and stop and.
Well, I'll tell you what we
Sorts
can't
of
do. And
things.
that'll be up to Sean and their decisions and, through the bidding process and,
Right.
numbers work. So what we probably can do is through the winter months, attain the building permit. Through the plan check process. And so sometime in the spring, construction theoretically could begin. Now it'll be really up to them in the bidding process because we're going to select contractor, its project and its numbers and all that. So very likely this coming summer would be the appropriate time to do this work because they are also going to expose portions of the upper story of the existing. But it's going to be, through the winter and the earliest it would be spring.
It's all dependent on
Okay.
funding and we get, those bids and see.
Yeah. Yeah,
So the
and you
soonest
don't
would
know
be-
who you're gonna be
yeah.
working with yet, so it's gonna take a while. Now, okay, so now let me have another question here. What happens if during the construction period, there's some need for change? How does that work?
Well, we like to avoid that because it's extremely costly.
But it happened.
But
I can
yeah,
answer part one
sure.
of that.
with that,
I can answer part one of that.
yes.
So if we can approve this project today, so this is discretionary, it's,
Right.
can be continued, it can be denied, and it can be approved with conditions.
Right,
So if we are able to make the findings and approve this project today, and these plans would be the basis for the building permit set that we check at plan check when they submit to make sure they do match, right? So any minor change, minor being, well, the door is centered, but we found out really for practical purposes, we wanted to move it to the left. That's
right,
considered like a minor change. The director can, Mike Hinkle can look at those and be like, oh, okay, so that's really not gonna have any impacts on anyone, that's fine. If we are going along and they're like, we've decided to add another story, like
Uh-huh.
a significant change,
right,
we'll be right back doing this again.
right,
Because
right,
we had
right.
that would throw us back into basically a new design review
right,
application.
right,
So
right,
it's-
right.
It depends on the amount of change and the impacts it would have on the neighborhood. But
Mhm,
mostly,
mhm.
so minor changes are administrative is the long and short answer.
Great. Okay, good. Well, I think all my questions are answered and I don't have any immediate objection. I do want to have somebody else look at this that's a little bit better skilled at understanding what everything means in here. But I don't have any immediate objections. It doesn't seem like it's a big problem or that it's gonna be impactful.
I'm so glad you came today and asked questions.
Nothing like coming in person.
Right? This 2024 world, we get to do it in person.
I love Zoom, but sometimes.
Depending
it's-
on-
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
No changes.
No, but no,
Limited on like how big or how much more we can do. This is kind of,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
maybe you could do.
Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Is this a decision-making moment here or?
So what I was gonna do next is, again, trying to follow some of the quasi judicial rules
Right.
of the land use forum is, I would close the public comment period. I would talk a little bit about the findings that we have to make and the conditions of approval that are in draft form right now. Make sure that especially, the applicant and his architect understand them. They're pretty straightforward, but they haven't seen them yet, so we want to walk through those. And then, if we can make the findings, I would approve the project. There is a 5-day appeal period. Any interested party could appeal the project and with a payment, I can look up the payment amount, but it's in a letter. And then that would stay the decision. And we would schedule the hearing for planning.
Okay,
That's
great.
that's the appeal
Okay.
body. So,
Okay, so it's not significant if I take a day or two just to look this over.
no, it's not significant. If, I have read these findings and I do believe I can make them. So the significance is if, there's an appeal fee. It would cost you money to appeal the project. That's our decision. So it's significant. Be significant to my budget. I want to make sure you see that coming, but that's the one issue.
Uh-huh.
Are you looking at the fee sheet?
Yes.
Okay, great. So with that, I'll close the public comment period. If anybody wants to talk, I can open it again, but it's not like a door that only swings once, but just trying to follow any
And
protocol.
can I get your name again? I'm sorry.
Sure. I can get my card at the end of this, but my name's Margaret
Margaret.
Kavanaugh Lynch.
Margaret?
Yeah, everyone just calls me Margaret because the last name is long. I'm the
Lynch?
planning manager here, Kavanaugh Lynch. No
Kavanaugh.
relation to any Supreme Court justice.
Thanks.
Um,
Okay, got it.
Perfect. Okay, so closing the public comment period and taking it back.
Okay.
There are findings related to the environmental design review permit. I won't read them because they are in the staff report and those that will be published, but basically we have 4 findings to make, that basically that the project is in accord with our general plan, which is the governing document of cities in California. In our zoning ordinance, and through our analysis, we have found that this project does meet all of our regulations, both in the general plan and the zoning code, with the exception of needing an environmental design review, which is why we're here today. We have found that the project is consistent with all site, architecture, landscaping, design criteria, and guidelines for the district in which it is located. We have found that the way it is designed, it minimizes adverse environmental impacts. And that final finding is that the project will not be detrimental to public health, safety, welfare, to properties in the vicinity. The key way that finding is implemented is by following the building code, so that we make that distinction, but it's clearly been designed in a way that it's been thoughtful to surrounding neighbors and will be built to the current building code for the state of California. So I do believe that we have been able to make the findings in the staff report. And now to our applicant and property owner, apologies, these are standard conditions. You can follow them in detail, but I'll give you the overview. Basically, the first condition is called the approved project conditions. The drawings are conditions, then we just described that. So it's the point of transparency in local government is the plans that you submit, the plans that we can, if we approve them, those are what your neighbors can expect to have built. So sometimes people do, to our neighbor's point, value engineering can occur. Things can typically get smaller, they can't typically get larger. But that's what we're, substantial conformance is the threshold, and if anything changes, we'll talk about what level of review would be the most appropriate. Subject to all the other laws, that basically means anything but the building division or the public works department feels is appropriate would be implemented through the building permit process. If it is approved today, the project. If the approval date becomes today, the effective date is 5 days later, so September 30th. And then this planning entitlement, which is the paper, not the building, the paper is good for 2 years. Okay, that's, after that, you can ask for an extension if finances become complicated. There's lots of reasons why people get an entitlement and then extend it. The person sitting in my shoes at the time, if not me, will just make sure that nothing significant has changed. And we try very hard to grant those, because things happen, but the entitlement's good for 2 years and extension is possible. You have to get a building permit. Construction hours throughout the city of San Rafael are 7 to 6, Monday through Friday, and 9 to 6 on Saturdays. Some certain noise conditions are taken at the property line, so way out. Nothing, no activities, no outdoor noisy activities are Sundays and holidays. If you're inside painting, that's fine. If you're inside plumbing, but jackhammers, people pounding nails, that stuff can't happen on Sundays and holidays in a way that the neighbors can. So that everyone has a chance for some peace during the inspection process. Colors, materials, and lighting shall be designed to avoid glare, off-site light. We do have a dark sky requirement in the city of San Rafael. So in your building permit plans, you will probably have notations saying the lights, any exterior lights will be aimed down in a way that they don't splash into the neighbors' yards. And nothing is so shiny as it happens. A light and glare thing where it impacts the neighbors. That actually covers 2 of the conditions. If you have rooftop equipment, you're gonna need to screen it. Probably not a big deal for this project. Temporary fences may be erected around the construction sites. We have lots of fences, but when you're building, we want you to make sure that your site is secure. And unfortunately, occasionally sites get vandalized or robbed, so you are welcome to put up a temporary fence to secure your property during the construction process. You must remove it when you're done. Any landscaping must be maintained in good condition. And the materials and colors shown in our plans are the materials and colors we expect to see when we go out and do final inspections at basically the certificate of occupancy, the final inspection. So again, that's just a transparency thing. If someone thinks the house is a certain color, that's what the neighbor saw, that's what the community saw. That's what we need to see when we go out. Obviously, things get discontinued, etc. So if there's anything, just talk to us. We could be substantially compliant on that too. Gosh knows, there's enough paint colors that are remarkably close together when you go to a paint store. So we can work with you if that's ever a problem. Those are a summary of the draft conditions. Do you have any questions or concerns that you want to bring up? Any last comment period one more time? Any last thoughts or comments? Okay. Jose, how much is the appeal for the non-applicant?
Good question. Again, Jose Herrera for the record. Appeals to planning commission, non-applicant resident is a flat fee of $350.
It's not,
It's pretty significant.
it is very significant.
Yeah.
The applicant's fee per appeal is higher.
That appeal to planning commission applicant and non-resident is $5,000.
That, right, so
Wow.
fees are set by the city council. That's clearly if a neighbor has concerns and feels their conviction is to appeal the project, it's much more in reach and would not cover the staff time to write the appeal report, whereas they feel that the applicants have had a long time to work with staff, and so if there's an appeal from an applicant, that's probably close to what it would cover for this time to go to.
So if I wanted to appeal,
You would
which I don't expect, but if I did, how much would it cost?
$350. And a letter written, if you do want to appeal, please let us know within that, we've got 5 days from
Got it.
today.
Got it.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, I think with all of that discussed, I'm gonna close the public comment period. I believe we've made the findings and the applicants heard the conditions, so I hereby approve this project at Henry Bench, 3 Welch Street, subject to the findings and the conditions in the staff report, which will be published by Friday. And I hereby close the meeting of zoning administrator. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. I really appreciate your patience while we did the thing we did. Even if there was no one here today, people can watch it online at their pleasure, and they have the same appeals rate as everybody else, so that's the whole thing of it. Thank you again.
Thank you.